Hey, it's Mike Hambright back with another Flipnerd VIP episode. Today I have with me Tim Smith, who is the CEO and founder of Investway, which is a real estate service company. It's basically software that helps people analyze deals, find comps in certain markets, and they have a growth plan to roll this out across the country. Before we get started, let's take a second to recognize our featured sponsor. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Flipnerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Glad we could finally connect on here.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, so for those that don't know Tim, we're actually friends. Tim used to live in the Dallas market, and he is relocated out to Park City, Utah, and trying to escape the heat, I guess, a little bit, and go someplace a little more scenic than Dallas. But Tim, I obviously know you better than a lot of folks, and I'm a user of your product and have been since I started real estate investing. But why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, and we'll start talking about Investway as well.
Well, it's kind of funny. I think it starts with a story. Back in the early 2000s, how I came to this business and how we came to meet, quite frankly. I started in real estate and commercial real estate for a couple years as an analyst, and left that, landed in a private equity firm and asset management firm, and was doing that. And so I was doing a lot of big commercial type projects with other people's money, having fun, and wanted to get in on some of the action, and basically started by night, if you will, moonlighting, buying foreclosures at auctions and that kind of thing. And what I found was I had these really cool tools during the day, real expensive software, but very powerful things. And then I was trying to evaluate houses, of all things, and look at buying some real estate, and it couldn't even get comps. Didn't even know what the value for something was. And actually, my first purchase, believe it or not, was a house at auction, and I based my purchase on the tax value and driving the neighborhood and calling on some signs. Of course, this predates MLS. I hate aging myself here, but this predates MLS Online, where it was all easily available and that kind of thing. And so MLS in those days was dial-up modem into some DOS type interface, and so there wasn't stuff you could go do. And I wasn't a member of the board. Had a broker's license at the time, but didn't subscribe to the club, so to say, or part of the local realtor organization. And so I was as blind as anybody in evaluating these properties. Luckily, that first deal, I actually made out okay. It was like a $12,000 profit, and I was hooked at that point and said, okay, we got to make some better decisions.
So what year was that? What year would that have been?
That would have been probably, I want to say 2000, 2001.
Okay.
Exactly. So it was pretty early in all this. And then
couple of years. That was a couple of years after Al Gore invented the internet.
That's right.
Just a few years after that.
Well, of course, in real estate, is cutting edge with technology. They're always leading the way.
Right.
Everything that goes on.
We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that some more too. So yeah. So
exactly. But and so it was an interesting time, and out of that I came up with this system. My first exposure was borrowing a buddy's MLS login. I probably shouldn't say that over public airways, but doing what you need to do to evaluate these properties, and actually made some better, more informed decisions. And very very shortly thereafter, within a year, maybe two, connected with another guy who had some similar interests, and we ended up seeing this need for data on the internet for real estate. And we actually started a company called My Castle Realty, and we're one of the pioneers in putting MLS listings online. And this is just not necessarily for investment, but just putting real estate data online, and there was a big fight at the time. You have the old entrenched school that was fighting to maintain the status quo, and then you had new people like us coming in saying, hey, there's a better way to do business. And so it was fun. It was fun times. We were at that time I was a witness for the Department of Justice in suing antitrust MLSs, and we got nominated by Inman News, our real estate publication organization, for most innovative business model, and so it's kind of cool. I was kind of young, 20-something at the time, and I was sitting on the board, the MLS board for making policy, and I'm some young 20-year-old sitting with a bunch of 50-plus-year-olds. That was interesting discussions.
Yeah, and you started a brokerage at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we started what typical residential brokerage. Well, it's not typical, but we started a residential brokerage with the idea of doing internet-based brokerage, providing data online for trying to move the transaction to a lot of online, and out of that, my partner and I had always interested in investing and doing investing on the side. We're still looking and buying properties, and so we made available a part of our company, a division, if you will, to focus on real estate investors and provide a product where they could have similar tools that the real estate agents would have available to them. And that was kind of the first venture into providing, information services for real estate investors, or brokerage services for real estate investors.
Yeah.
And that was it was something we knew. We knew what people were interested in. We knew what they needed, and so we launched a product before we had one. It was kind of a manual service where someone wanted a comp. We'd have someone sit behind a desk and pull it up and send it out. And we sold that as a service and pumped through a bunch of those very quickly. We built some technology to keep up, and that was born, and it did pretty well for a couple of years.
And what was that called? What was that called then?
That back then it was My Castle, and we had My Castle Investor Services, which was our investment.
Right. Okay.
And that unfortunately is not a tale of great success, and it didn't sell out publicly or anything. It actually, my partner and I went some different directions, unfortunately, and that got mired down in some fights, if you will, and what the future of the company might be, and then we had some employee and agent challenges, and maybe it was our novice in dealing with the brokerage side of things, but there was a lot coming at us, and ultimately we ended up just closing that business. But out of the ashes of that came Investway, and so basically I launched that service, just focusing on the investors, got rid of all the residential brokerage stuff, and that was in 2007. We launched in the Dallas market, and that's where you and I met.
Yep.
And that had a great, stellar first year, just growing like crazy, and started opening up a couple other markets, and then 2008 came along and threw a wet towel on the top of that, and kind of slowed down a little bit with our model, and it was either reinvent the model, because the number of people that make this worthwhile just wasn't, not a lot of interest for it, or figure out how to make this work. So we did go through a few years of kind of hibernation, and just kind of kept the service out there and available, but not a lot of continued investment in the product. But that's changed over the last year plus, whereas the markets come back, and I actually, during that period, and a little bit about this, got involved in marketing automation and that side of business. But what's interesting now is I'm coming back into the real estate side of things, and have this vision of building real estate investing automation and taking that kind of to the next level. Yeah. And so that should be,
with Investway, it's interesting. I guess I subscribed in roughly the summer of 2008, which is when I got started as an investor. And I had the same need that a lot of real estate investors have, is I need access to comps, and not just, real comps, real MLS data. And in most markets across the country still, you have to have access to the MLS, or have a friend that'll help you get your information.
That's right.
And with a wink or whatever. There's very, very little data that you can get without having access to the MLS other than Investway. Now, I've been fortunate in this market. Obviously, you're growing into new markets and have some pretty bold plans to grow this into additional markets. But the other thing is, it's not just MLS data. It's displayed in a way that's very friendly for real estate investors rather than somebody looking for a home for themselves, let's say. So.
Right. Yeah, and kind of our tagline, if you will, but really it's kind of our driving vision. We call it find, evaluate, seal the deal. And when we're looking at something, hey, does it make sense to add this, or what do we want to do with this? Does it help an investor find a deal? Does it help them evaluate their deal more effectively? And does it help them take action on it? So they can actually do something to buy this thing, whether that's take a look at it, make an offer on it, whatever. So, and that's it's been interesting because the background we had with My Castle and the different focus with Investway of being completely investor centric. It makes it real easy and much more clear on what the mission is and how we're going to display this information, what we're going to do with it. So
So some of the challenges, I just know this, I'll tee this up for you, but some of the challenges that I know you face are getting access to MLS data across the country.
Right.
Because every MLS is different and you have to get into each one individually, right?
Yeah, it is a really challenging. Any model, any brokerage, not just what we do, but any general brokerage, it's challenging enough just getting the data, it does come in different formats. You've got, we don't have, in Dallas, there's not too many oceanfront properties. In Houston, that's a little different story. So the data may be a little different.
With global warming, though, that may change.
That might change. That's true. Basements is another fun one that we deal with in some areas and others not. But the data is not so tricky as the MLS regulations and rules vary per MLS. And so going into a new area, we've got to make sure we understand the rules. A lot of times our model is not one that people embrace of the typical real estate community. They don't understand it and maybe threatening. But and so we've had I don't think there's an area that we've not gone into, and we're in 3 currently, where we haven't had a nice conversation with the powers that be, questioning what are you doing, how's this working, or here's what's going on. So, we constantly have this battle and between what our investors want and what the MLS, because we use their data, we license their data, will allow us to do. And investors have one need, and the MLS obviously has what they do and don't want with that data.
Yeah.
And so, our model has had to adapt for that. And so why, in some other businesses, it might be easy to say, hey, this is what the customer wants. Let's just give it to them. We can't always do that. And so sometimes we have to get quite creative in how we go around to, hey, let's really meet the need of what our customer wants, but, be held to all these regulations and kind of standards and what we're doing.
Well, why don't you, before we get any further into this, why don't you kind of explain what Investway is and how it works, and essentially, what's the need that you're solving for real estate investors typically?
Yeah, so the need comes really from my story of not having good information to make investment purchase decisions. And so at its core, that's where it starts. And so our system provides an MLS. We do have MLS data that we allow investors to search and filter, and we build search tools that appeal to investors. So it's not so much of, hey, how many fireplaces does this property have, as what kind is this a vacant property that's been on the market for 120 days, or other ways that investors are going to find something that is going to be a good investment, potentially a good investment opportunity. And so the search tools are catered towards that. So if you can get MLS data now on the internet anywhere. It's everywhere. So that's not the issue. But how do you sort through all that massive data to get to the stuff that you want to spend your time on chasing? That's key. And then once you're looking at something that looks interesting, how can you quickly know if you need to take it to the next action? And so really, it starts with armchair. We kind of like it armchair investing, where you can either sit behind your computer, look at properties, get a good idea of what you need to go look at and have a good idea of what is good opportunities before you start up the car and go drive neighborhoods. So
Right.
that's kind of the first goal. And certainly with real estate investing, you're going to want to look at the property at some point, and look at what's going to need for repairs and that kind of thing. And you can't, that's a part of the business you just can't do online. There's just not the information reliably enough to make those decisions.
Right.
But once you do that, then the next hurdle there is usually, what do you do next? Got to go back, got to start printing this out, got to contact the agent, got to do whatever. And so we've tried to streamline that part of it as well, where you can make an offer, you can have pre-formatted stuff where you can send out, and we'll help you actually close those. So we work, our customers and clients come. We get the new guy who's coming in and wanting to make a difference financially, like you were 4 or 5 years ago, in 2008. Yeah. And then we've had people on here now that I've been working with for 13 years that are still on our system, that have been around. It's a real tool that investors use day to day in their investing. It's not a scheme, with a lot of fluff and feathers of hey, this is going to change your life. It's just a really hardcore tool that can help you get to the information you want to make.
Yeah, I know you're continually building more functionality. I know there's some folks that are, so specifically you're pulling in MLS data, so trying to help folks find deals on the MLS.
Right.
For me, actually, that's not what I do. I've bought nearly 300 houses. I bought 3 or 4 off the MLS. We're usually dealing with sellers that are contacting us because of the advertising I do and things. But we use them to evaluate comps, and I think one of the cool features of, I remember it was one of those there has to be a better way moments when I first started. This was before when we were just trying to get started in real estate, had no idea what we were doing. And we had kind of found I don't think he was a broker, he was an agent that we thought would be helpful. And, we would ask for comps, and he'd say, I'll get them to you by tomorrow morning. And we're like, no. I need comps like right now. Like, what can you do in 1 minute?
Right.
And that was, the realization that we had to find. Well, 2 things happened. One, my wife became an agent so we could get access to whatever we needed and not have to have somebody else in our way. But 2 was we started using InvestWay. And in fact, even though my wife has been an agent since the very beginning, we still actually use InvestWay, even though we have access to the MLS directly. For all these years, we've paid a subscription price. So I think you at least owe me a beer, Tim, when we see each other again, at least. But
wait. How many deals have you been able to buy because you were quicker?
Yeah, well, the great thing about it is it's a very user-friendly format for real estate investors. But the cool thing about it is, in the way, everybody probably uses it a little bit differently, you effectively order, I'm doing a commercial for you here. What's going on? You effectively order your comp. So I can put in an address and do a search just like you're doing a Google search. And I can filter it if I want to. And I order a report. It immediately emails it to me. And I'm not a one-man shop. I have a team. I have admins. I have salespeople and things like that. So we have it go to a distribution list. So effectively everybody on my team can get it and access that information without us having to come to me and me to email it on to other people and somebody to say, I didn't get it, can you send it again, and all that rigmarole. We have it set up so that our entire team can order comps and get access to comps when they're ordered. Or one person can order them and just tell the other person it's on its way. So I think that format of being able to just receive a link effectively and click on it from a mobile device, or 5 years ago we were toting around big thick laptops with like a Wi-Fi card trying to get online, and now we're rolling around in iPads and stuff. So, just the functionality of it from a real estate investor perspective, to be able to see proximity to a specific house for us is something that the MLS hasn't been able to do.
Right.
Yeah,
and it surprises. I mean, with the resources those MLSs have, that how clunky sometimes their systems are, and just something. It's one of those things where technology, good technology is about making things simpler and easier to use. And I'm just shocked sometimes these organizations take so long to make it more useful. And I guess that's where the opportunity for entrepreneurs lies in, where
that's right.
You jump in and make a better mousetrap, so to say, and there are people that appreciate that. So
yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about just generally speaking with, not just MLSs. I know that's primarily who you're dealing with, but there's also tax appraisal offices and stuff like that. They all operate differently. They all have different technology.
Right.
Most of them don't feel the pain to improve. So what they have now is okay.
Yeah.
So, but I know part of the challenge of growing your business is getting access into different MLSs and helping them understand why you're trying to use their data and how you're going to use it and maybe how it'll benefit them. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges of tapping into those different markets. And we should say, so right now tell us the markets that you're in right now.
Sure. Yeah, we're in two markets in Texas, in Dallas and Dallas in the greater Houston area.
Yeah.
And those comprise many counties, I think probably 60, 70 counties between the two of them in Texas. And then we're also in Indianapolis, around and several counties around there. So those are the areas we're in right now. So as far as getting into an area, originally we've refined our business model through the years. There was a point we had a product that we provided foreclosure data. We were grabbing it, going out and grabbing tax data locally, as well as the MLS data, and trying to be a kind of a one-stop resource for property information, if you will, for investing. And what we found though is that's a really tough. It's already hard to go in with MLS and get your system in working. And so we've really tailored back, I guess, our business model. And the one now is really mostly MLS-centric investing. And so while we welcome people like you on the system that need to just evaluate properties, and you've got other resources, whether that's mailings or advertising or other things going on, foreclosure auction buying, whatever it might be, we can certainly be a part of that. Our focus at this point is, let's get what we can out of the MLS. That's who we're going to be. Yeah. And then what the other service providers, the other information providers out there, we can still work with and integrate to some degree, our systems as an investor, which you might use there. So that has made it a little different because, if you take tax data, for example, every county is different. And quite frankly, hats off to Zillow, pre-Zillow and post-Zillow. They've done amazing things. Of course, they've had big budgets to do that, but to be able to compile nationwide tax data like they do is quite amazing. And so that's one of the services we're actually piggybacking off of to some degree, because it makes it easier for us to pull down some of the text data, at least in a general sense, to get information about property that we might not know anything about. Right. But yeah, so those are challenging. And then depending on what the foreclosure market was another. That's where I kind of grew my roots, right, in this business, was buying at auction, and those vary per state dramatically in requirements and where the data sources might be. And so what we found is, if we want to grow, let's define what our product is, what we can grow, and go after that need and do it real well. We're not going to be everything to everybody, and actually we have no desire anymore to try and do that. But we want to do that core piece of. I think there is value on the MLS. If you didn't have all the great advertising you do with the program you belong with, it could be a good sizable part of investing, particularly in residential business.
Sure. So talk about your plans to grow into new markets, and you're kind of trying to form more of a partnership model now, right, where you find boots on the ground in various major MLSs and try to expand your footprint that way.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a key piece of what we're doing, is needing good quality people who understand real estate investing and have a license, and trying to find some real good individuals like that we can partner up with and bring our technology and bring our model and have a win-win. So at this point, we're kind of earmarking, if you will, 20 of the biggest markets to go after, but we're certainly open to finding right connections with people. So we're always on the lookout for that.
Yeah, sure. Great. And I know you've got some. Why don't you talk a little bit about? It's interesting. we're talking about how some of the MLSs and data sources are a little bit behind the times in terms of technology. But in all honesty, a lot of real estate investors are behind the times. I mean, we have developed this awesome app that's like the best app that there is for real estate investing within the HomeVestor system. And there's people that are like, come in and they're like caveman with laser gun. They don't know how to quite use it yet. So there's also a learning curve or a technology curve for end users as well, that you have to kind of be cautious of not being too far ahead of people that just don't know what to do with it. So
right, and that's a challenge, and it's a fine line. And someone like us that's an app provider, where we're providing our application, it's tricky. I'll give you a couple examples. We rolled out one of our newer interfaces to Investway in the fall, and while that was mostly greatly well received, and now it was mobile friendly, you could do it on your phone or your iPad quite easily. We got our fair share of people still on old versions of Windows, and so and it's a challenge for a technology company, because there's some really great new technologies, but if your customers don't have the devices or some of the things for them, you either leave them behind, or it's very challenging you can't do both, and so you kind of have to make some of those decisions. And so I would say it's a good mix. I don't know that I would throw all investors in the same boat of
of course not,
Luddites, out there, but we have some very advanced folks, and they appreciate some of the new stuff, and but I think with anything, I maybe that's more of a human nature thing, and particularly when you have like a physical asset that you're dealing with, like in real estate, and so there's the data, obviously, that's all manipulated in technology, but then you have this other physical thing, and so often the way you paint a house is still the way you paint a house, and you're dealing with tech that doesn't change and evolve very quickly.
Right.
So I think maybe some of those processes and things that were used to not changing very quickly, maybe that can help some of the mentality to slow down a little bit. But I will say, one of the things I think as an investor, I think is worthwhile, and I think this could separate anybody out there in whatever business, and that's going through this validated learning process. Whether I'm an investor and I'm buying houses, the first ones you're going through, you learned a lot, and you learned what didn't work, and those lessons are just as important as the ones that do work. And I think that's just a natural part of success, quite frankly, is how quickly you can iterate through what works and doesn't work. And I think technology's role in that is critical. I mean, because it can allow you to accelerate that process.
Right.
And so I have visions, I guess, of grandeur, of taking some of the offline stuff for real estate and looking at ways to make those more effective. Maybe technologies that you can do with that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, and those that are willing to pony up and learn a little bit and feel out new technologies like that are much more ahead.
I've talked about it a lot in interviews on the Flipnerd show lately, and just outside of that, about how for a lot of folks for a lot of years, the big opportunity has been just how fragmented this industry is, and how fragmented the data and information is to make decisions. And there's definitely a movement, maybe behind other industries, but a movement to consolidate information and to make your time to making a decision much more quickly. And unless you kind of adopt, and you could say this for probably every industry, unless you can adopt to using new technologies, you're just going to get left behind. So Peter Drucker, I think, said change is risky, but not to change is riskier. So so it's one of those things. I absolutely agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I know you've got some other things that are on the horizon, but you're not prepared to talk to them about. So we'll let everybody know.
You have to keep that on the hush hush.
Yeah. Well, I won't tell anybody. But when it comes out, I'll tell everybody for you. So, but we'll have links below to get to investway.com. It's a subscription model, and folks can learn more about it. And if they're interested in, partnership opportunities, do you have any links on the site for that, or how do they get?
I believe there are. So if you you can go down where there's partners and affiliates and just contact us that way. But yeah, we'd be tickled to hear what you're doing in your local area and talk further to see if there's some opportunities for us both.
And do you still have a trial period on the on Investway.com?
We do, yeah. So you can jump on there, particularly if you're in one of our markets that we currently cover. Definitely jump on there. It's interesting though. We get in the markets we've done in Texas, usually always, and even in Indiana, we do get investors from all over. Those seem to still be good investment locations. So we from coast to coast, we'll still get people.
Yeah, even if somebody's outside the area and they're interested in partnership opportunities, maybe they could just pretend like they're in Houston or Dallas or Indianapolis for a week and
there you go.
Try it out. So awesome. Well, hey Tim, I really appreciate you being on today, sharing some of your insights.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again. Thanks for the patience. I know you and I were trying to connect here for a couple months. So.
Well, hey, when you have a skiing incident and tear your ACL and stuff, what am I going to say? I got to be patient, right? So, anyway, hey, thanks for being on. Appreciate your info. And for those that are interested, check out Investway.com. We'll have links down below the video. And Tim, we'll see you around.
Okay.
All right, take care. Are you a member of Flipnerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit Flipnerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to Flipnerd.com.